Darkness opened into whiteness. A slow beat pierced the silence, steady and patient, counting the seconds he had stolen back from death. Jinwoo's eyes flickered open to a hospital ceiling, the kind of blank, merciless white that swallows time. His body was wrapped in bandages. His arm lay suspended in a sling. The scent of disinfectant hung thick in the air. Outside the thin curtain came the low hum of machines and the faint shuffle of nurses' shoes. He should have been dead. He remembered the temple collapsing, the statues bowing, the command that had not been a command but a contract. And yet here he was, alive. When he blinked, light gathered before him, not from the room but from something unseen. A translucent blue screen hovered above his bed, lines of text written in that same otherworldly script. The screen did not belong to reality, yet it refused to vanish. It said he had completed the hidden quest. It said he was now a player. At first he thought it was shock, a hallucination from trauma, but when he tried to look away, the window followed. When he closed his eyes, it waited. It was patient. It was permanent. Days passed, and while doctors discussed nerve damage and reporters hounded the survivors, Jinwoo read in silence. The blue screen spoke to him in rules and numbers. It called itself the system and offered daily quests that appeared each dawn, stretches, push-ups, runs. Simple tasks. Yet when he ignored them, a countdown began to pulse red. He dismissed it the first time. His legs were weak, his ribs still mended. He closed his eyes, thinking the message would fade. When the timer struck 0, the world split open. One heartbeat, he was in the hospital bed. The next, he stood in a desert of bones beneath a crimson sky. Sand whipped across a landscape littered with the skeletons of creatures larger than houses. He heard growls beneath the wind, soft, deliberate, hungry. Then he ran. The penalty zone had no mercy. Shadows followed him, claws tore the ground where he had stood an instant before. He ran until his throat burned, until his breath broke. The system's message glowed before him, cruelly calm. Survive for 4 hours. Time stretched into agony. Every step felt like a bargain between breath and death. His mind fractured, but something inside him refused to collapse. The same stubborn spark that once made him walk into gates despite his weakness. When the sand finally dissolved and the world snapped back into the hospital, he collapsed onto the cold tile floor, shaking. Sweat drenched the sheets. The timer was gone. In its place appeared a new message. Quest complete. Rewards available. The pain in his body was real, but beneath it, something else stirred, a faint vitality, as though the ordeal had carved new strength into his bones. He obeyed the next quests. He stretched, ran, fought against exhaustion. The system's notifications accompanied every breath, small increases in strength, agility, sense, numbers rising little by little. In the quiet of the hospital nights when the lights dimmed and machines hummed, Jinwoo began to understand. This was not madness. It was a contract of survival, a law of growth written into his very blood. And somewhere behind the glowing screens, something watched, something ancient measuring. When he was discharged weeks later, he stood before the mirror in the locker room of the association's training center. His reflection was still thin, his scars still mapped his skin, yet his eyes had changed. The hesitation was gone. He accepted the next mission, a cleanup of a low-rank dungeon alone. The system approved. The gate shimmered open. He stepped through, and the air of another world swallowed him again. The gate shimmered like liquid glass behind him, sealing the noise of soul away. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of wet stone and iron. Every sound echoed, his steps, his breath, the faint click of the sword at his hip. The cavern stretched forward in narrowing corridors, faintly blue crystals blooming from the walls like veins of frozen light. The system, window, opened in front of him again. Dungeon difficulty, unknown. He exhaled through his nose. There was no rank, no gauge to warn him, only instinct. He crouched near the entrance, running his palm across the soil. Tracks padded deep, claw marks gouged into the stone. Whatever lived here hunted in packs. He counted the spacing, the depth, the way the claws angled. Wolves, his mind decided. Large. He moved inward, slow and measured. Every 10 meters he stopped, listened, adjusted the balance of weight between his feet. The light from the crystals flickered, hiding movement in bursts of shadow. His hand hovered near the knife strapped across his thigh, the only weapon small enough to draw without noise. A growl rolled from somewhere ahead, followed by 3 lighter responses. He dropped low. When the first wolf lunged from the left corridor, its silhouette broke the glow only for a second, but that was enough. He shifted to his right foot, pivoted, and drove the blade upward through the soft point beneath its jawline. The motion was clean, the breath behind it measured. The beast fell without a sound. The second came before the first hit the ground. He used the falling body as a shield, stepping behind it, letting the momentum carry the carcass into the attack. The claws scraped flesh from the dead instead of his chest. He pivoted again, knife reversed in grip, and struck along the ribs, short, economic. The creature collapsed, momentum spent. The third stayed back, packing, watching. Jinwoo held still, counting its rhythm, feeling his pulse slow until it matched the creature's breathing. When it charged, he moved first, not away but toward. He ducked under the leap, rolled, and drove his knee into the base of its neck, pressing until it stilled. When he rose, his arms shook, not from fear but exhaustion. His muscles trembled with adrenaline and the shock of surviving. He checked the wounds, minor slashes, a shallow bite on the forearm. The system flashed a notification. Vitality +2, strength +1. For a long moment he simply stood there, chest heaving, the glow of the crystals washing over him. The numbers were real, the fatigue was real, and for the first time so was progress. He cleaned the knife on his sleeve and advanced deeper into the den. The corridors tightened, forcing him to move sideways, his shoulder brushing damp stone. He studied the patterns on the floor, blood trails from prey dragged inward. At the chamber's end lay a mound of bones and fur, the smell of decay thick enough to sting his eyes. A larger shape stirred within the nest, the alpha. Its eyes opened, yellow discs reflecting the crystal light. The creature stood, shoulders brushing the ceiling, its breath a low rumble. Jinwoo adjusted his grip. He could not overpower it, he would have to outmove it. When it sprang, he dove sideways, rolling into the wall, feeling the shock wave of its landing vibrate through stone. Dust rained. He slid along the floor, coming up on one knee, watching its weight distribution. The alpha circled, slower now, measuring him. He baited it, stepped forward, feinted left, drew it into another lunge. As it passed, he slashed across the rear tendon just deep enough to break stance, then retreated. The creature stumbled, recovered, and roared. The sound shook his bones. He waited for the next charge. Timing, breath. Every movement he had learned from running away was now turned into pursuit. When the wolf lunged again, he ducked low, both hands on the blade, driving it into the exposed throat as they collided. The impact sent him sprawling. The air left his lungs in a single burst. For several seconds, there was no sound but dripping water. Then the system window blinked above the fallen beast. Boss defeated, experience acquired. Jinwoo stared at it, the words trembling with the reflection in his eyes. The body began to dissolve into particles of light, leaving behind a shard, a small, glowing stone that pulsed softly in the dust. He reached for it. Warmth traveled through his palm, up his arm, into his chest. He could feel it, real strength. When he left the dungeon hours later, dawn was spreading through Seoul. The portal closed behind him like a sigh. He was still weak by any measure, still barely more than human, but the tremor that had once lived in his hands was gone. The system chimed once more. Quest complete, the path of the player begins. And for the first time, he smiled without forcing it. The morning air of Seoul felt unreal, too bright, too open. Jinwoo stepped out of the hospital with bandaged hands and a discharge notice that meant nothing to him. The traffic murmured, people hurried past, unaware of the gate's survivor among them. He still saw numbers flicker in the corner of his vision. HP 100/100, Strength 12, Agility 10. No one else did. The system followed him into daylight. That night the first daily quest appeared. Complete 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run. Failure will result in penalty zone activation. He frowned at the glowing text, laughed once in disbelief, and ignored it. The next moment, the world vanished. He landed in an endless red desert. The sky burned, the sand screamed with storm winds, and enormous centipedes tore through dunes. Panic drove him forward until his lungs shredded themselves on the heat. When he collapsed, a shadow moved. One of the monsters had found him. He ran, not heroically but like a man refusing death a second time. The chase lasted forever until the sand fell away and he woke up, back in his bed, drenched in sweat. The clock showed 1 minute past midnight. The system chimed politely. Quest failed, penalty completed, please try again. The next morning he obeyed. Every push-up, every step became a bargain for survival. The city park saw him daily, moving through the regimen like ritual. Muscles hardened, breath deepened, and pain became a quiet teacher. By the third day, he noticed the small increments again. Strength +1, endurance +2. Numbers that once seemed meaningless began to feel like proof. A week later, he tested himself in a low-rank gate, an abandoned subway line turned dungeon. He joined no party, told no guild. Inside, he mapped the environment the way a soldier would: entry routes, elevation, possible cover. The creatures were weak goblins, yet his approach was methodical. He used debris for distraction, timed his advance between their shrieks, and dispatched them with efficiency learned from fear rather than courage. When he finished, he stood amid silence, chest rising slowly. He wasn't proud, only awake. That night, standing on the roof of his small apartment, he watched the city lights ripple like code beneath a rain-blurred sky. The system had given him purpose, but it felt more like surveillance than salvation. Every quest, every reward, it was training him for something unseen. He asked the sky a question no one could hear. Why me? The system didn't answer. Instead, a new window appeared. Hidden quest unlocked, the dungeon below. Coordinates blinked somewhere under the city. The wind cut across his face. He closed the notice, but the numbers remained burned behind his eyelids. As the episode closes, the camera drifts away from Jinwoo standing alone in the rain, the faint glow of the system reflecting in his eyes. Beneath Seoul, deep under concrete and time, something awakens, a heartbeat that does not belong to the living. Fade to black. The chime returns, cold and mechanical. The player has entered the game.